All right, let's go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call. All members of council are present. Councilor Polling and Councilor Santiago are present via the Teams, Microsoft Teams. Approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
I hear a motion by Council President Greisen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Lasowski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak tonight on anything that is not on tonight's agenda? Mr. Fitterich, you're good. I guess you're in the corner over there tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. Excuse me, I'm at that age. I'm going to be flipping my glasses on and off the whole time. I guess it's time for bifocals. I'm talking about the 50-year plan and master plans. That's the subject. So like many other citizens, I spent last Saturday at the town meeting and the 50-year plan work sessions. And first I want to say it was a fantastic event. Great to meet citizens, come together and participate in teams during the work sessions. Great job. And thanks a lot for the city and for the council for being there. It made, I think, a big deal that all you guys were there and participated just from the citizens' point of view. I've been watching the 50-year plan meetings and I've read the packet information along with the Scapus housing needs analysis created by Eco Northwest. For background, I also read the 2017 housing needs analysis, which was also created by Eco Northwest, about 4.5 years ago, actually. Interestingly, both plans are very similar and even come up with roughly the same conclusions on growth and land use. Of course, this makes sense. We're a small town with limited amount of land. We would not expect wide, ultra-varying changes in just 4.5 years. Still, it is important to relook at these plans, and I commend the city in doing so. At the same time, we are continuing to build houses, approve structures during the process of updating the plan, and that makes sense. Work does not stop simply because the plan is being updated. As a member of the Parks and Rec Committee, we're charged with improving the city's park system for the good of the citizens. We use the 2017 Parks Master Plan as a guide to our work. It's extremely well written, outlining citizen feedback, possible amenities, and potential land use that falls within the guidelines of the 2017 housing needs analysis. As with the city plan, we're excited about the possibility of updating our Parks Master Plan as well. We do not expect large changes to the plan, but as with the housing needs analysis, it's always good to revisit these plans. During the last Parks meeting, it was surprising to be told by the assistant to the city manager that no new capital expenditures would be allowed until a Parks Master Plan is created, a new Parks Master Plan. Basically, this means no significant improvements at all to any recreational amenity here in Scapus. When asked to the timeline of the new plan, we were told approximately 2.5 years. But given that, if the plan outlined any improvements to be made, it would take the time to work into the budget, secure funding, create RFPs, permits, construction, etc. Conservatively, this means it will be over 4 years of literally no significant upgrades to parks for our community. This means that someone who's a freshman today going to school would not see any changes to our public spaces before they leave the community. As stated by the assistant to the city manager, the only changes that can be made currently are repairs and minor changes such as signage and trash cans. Needless to say, it is troubling that the city has taken this route. While the 50-year plan has not stopped any city growth or stopped city growth, permits, building, etc., the potential for our new Parks Master Plan has completely stopped us in our tracks. I watched the city council meeting where it was discussed about halting the parks development, and one member said something to the effect of failure to plan is planning to fail. Well, we have a plan. It's the current master plan, and we ask to continue to be allowed to work with this plan as a group with the city to increase our opportunities as citizens, aka not just signage and trash cans for 4 years. When the updated Parks Master Plan is completed, we will work to integrate it seamlessly with our efforts. As with the 50-year plan, progress must continue. I ask the mayor and the city council to please reconsider their proclamation of no capital expenditure for parks so that we continue to improve recreational opportunities for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Does anyone else like to comment on anything not on the agenda tonight? All right, seeing none, I will close public comments. And we'll go to the consent agenda, which is the April 18th, 2022 council work session minutes, the April 18th, 2022 city council meeting minutes, the appointments of Monica Ehlers and Ty Bailey to the planning commission as full members and Harlow Vernwald as planning commission alternate. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Hearing a motion to approve the consent agenda by Council President Greisen, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor McHugh. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I've got to remember to wait for the online people. Apologize, Councilor Santiago polling.
I said aye.
Motion carries. And next item, proclamations, which is 4 proclamations tonight. The first one will start with the City of Scapus VFW Buddy Poppies proclamation, whereas the annual distribution of Buddy Poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States has been officially recognized and endorsed by governmental leaders since 1922. And whereas VFW Buddy Poppies are assembled by disabled veterans and the proceeds of this worthy fundraising campaign are used exclusively for the benefit of disabled and needy veterans and the widows and orphans of deceased veterans. And whereas the basic purpose of the annual distribution of Buddy Poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Wars is eloquently reflected in the desire to honor the dead by helping the living. And whereas leadership within the City of Scapus is built upon the philosophy that daily decisions and actions must incorporate individual accountability and ethical character qualities such as honesty, dedication, personal integrity, courage, compassion, love, and respect for all people. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Scott Burge, Mayor of the City of Scapus, do hereby urge the citizens of this community to recognize the merits of this cause by contributing generously to its support through your donations for Buddy Poppies on May 20th and 21st, 2022, for the distribution of these symbols of appreciation for sacrifices of our honored dead. Further, I urge all patriotic citizens to wear a Buddy Poppy as mute evidence of our gratitude to the men and women of this country who have risked their lives in defense of the freedoms which we continue to enjoy as American citizens. In witness whereof, I hereby set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Scapus to be affixed, done at City Hall in the City of Scapus, Oregon, on this 2nd day of May, 2022.
For sure.
Guys, you have the proclamation. All right. Next proclamation, National Small Business Month. Whereas the month of May 2022 has been designated as National Small Business Month in recognition of the critical contribution of America's entrepreneurs and small business owners, and whereas nationally more than half of Americans either own or work for a small business, and they create 2 out of every 3 new jobs in the U.S. each year. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. We must work to ensure that our city recovers and rebuilds not only from the top down, but also from the bottom up and the middle out. Whereas locally in Scapus, Oregon, 95% of our businesses are small businesses with 50 or fewer employees. The City of Scapus offers assistance by waiving the city business license fee and also recognizes that small business assistance is a partnership with our affiliated organizations. Whereas the City of Scapus takes this opportunity to highlight the impact of outstanding entrepreneurs and small business owners and recognizes that Small Business Month is a time for us to celebrate the successes of small business and to thank our small business owners for their contributions to our city, our economy, and our nation. Now therefore, I, Scott Burge, Mayor of the City of Scappoose, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Small Business Month in the City of Scappoose and urge all residents of Scappoose to participate in this observance. In witness whereof, I hereunder set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Scappoose to be affixed the second day of May 2022.
Thanks, guys.
Next, proclamation National Law Enforcement Week. To recognize National Police Week 2022 and to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are approximately 665,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Scappoose Police Department. Whereas some 60,000 assaults against law enforcement officers are reported each year, resulting in approximately 18,000 plus injuries. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, over 25,736 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty, including 190 officers in Oregon. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., whereas new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring. This includes 609 officers killed in 2021. Whereas May 15 is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families. Therefore, be it resolved, the City of Scappoose formally designates May 11th through the 16th, 2022 as Police Week in Scappoose, and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. In witness whereof I herein set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Scappoose to be affixed and at the City Hall in the City of Scappoose, Oregon, on this second day of May 2022. And Brian, I do have a signed proclamation for you. I'd like to.
Okay.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Brian.
you.
Thank you. This,
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
no, it's interesting because this is like my second city council meeting I've ever been at in my entire life. It's the second city council meeting I've ever been to. And it's nice to see, city leadership recognize VFW, which I am a member of, and the National Law Enforcement Memorial Week. It's a big deal to all the men and women in law enforcement, especially in days that we've seen recently where maybe they've been dragged through the mud a little bit. So it really is inspiring to hear a city such as Scappoose support the men and women of law enforcement. So thank you, and I know that they will be very happy and proud to receive this.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, one more National Public Works Week proclamation. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operations of public works systems and programs such as water, sewer, streets and highways, public buildings, and solid waste collection. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of our community greatly depends on these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of our public works officials. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff Public Works Department is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Scott Burge, Mayor of the City of Scappoose, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th through the 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week in the City of Scappoose. And I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Scappoose to fix the second day of May 2022. And Mr. Sukow, I have a signed copy for you. Thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dave.
All right. New business, resolution number 22-08, a resolution declaring two vehicles as surplus property. Mr. Jensen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are just requesting that Resolution 22-08 be passed and adopted. We are requesting that three of our vehicles be disposed of as they are no longer of use to the agency.
Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Council Wasowski.
Brian, just to confirm, I did reach out to you about this, but we'll be able to pull some parts and that'll be reusable for potential future use to be good stewards of our dollars.
Yes, Mr. Counselor, all the usable equipment's been removed from the vehicles and will be recycled into vehicles that we currently have or are getting outfitted.
Appreciate that.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Hearing a motion from Councilor Miller to adopt resolution 22-08. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor McHugh. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, resolution number 22-07, a resolution of the city of Scapus authorizing extended enterprise zone benefits for a fourth and fifth year to Control Solutions, Inc., located in South Columbia County Enterprise Zone. Mr. Vogel.
That timing. Mr. Mayor, councilors, Paul Vogel with the Columbia Economic Team. Thank you for placing this on the agenda. Also in light of Small Business Week and Small Business Month, I brought with us tonight a small business owner from St. Helens, Mr. Kevin Wick. He's requested an extension to enterprise zone benefits, 3-year enterprise zone benefits that he's qualified for, the 3-year standard exemption. He filed in timely manner all the pre-authorizations and the review by the state of Oregon. He's paying at 150% of annual covered wage. He's increased his employment by minimum 10%. He's actually increased it by 30%. 50% of which of whom are women, and 30% are historically underrepresented employees. He completed the construction in 2021. Investing $1.18 million. And he's requested the extension based upon, excuse me, based upon the expansion and the need to diversify the business, investing capital in diversifying into additional market channels. He can tell you more about his business. He's actually in the data logger business. Data loggers, very simply, his principal area is in monitoring and protecting the quality of vaccines. So you'd think, last couple of years, pretty good years in a lot of respects. What they found is you establish growth and you expand your business. You have the same supply chain problems that everybody else did, including microchips. And the pandemic invited an awful lot of competition into the business or into the industry, into the sector. And so what he's done is rework his business plan to move into other market channels to maintain his current level of employment and expand into other sectors. And so that would be the nature of his request to extend this to allow them time to capitalize and move into these diversified sectors. I'm sure Mr. Wick, who's the founder and president, would be happy to address you if you had questions.
So I assume that has St. Helens already approved?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, all other 5 sponsors have authorized this.
And my opinion from being on the CUT board is that if the home sponsor, which is St. Helens, has approved it, we really should support St. Helens's decision on this and support it.
Yes, sir. It was unanimous. Excuse me.
I just have
Thank you.
a question. Is there a point at which these extensions for enterprise zone extensions end, or just going to keep going perpetually until who knows when? Or is it just, it seems like that's what we're doing. I'm not against it. I'm just wondering, there's limits put on it at the beginning and we're extending it. Now, will we keep doing that for all the businesses? Is that the idea?
Excuse me. If a business is accepted a standard enterprise zone exemption, they can't then file for an extension. So they have to file for an extended one at the time they're asking for approval. It cannot be extended again. So in order to receive another exemption, you have to make another investment, which is the point is put your capital at risk, make an investment, and you may qualify for an exemption.
Okay, so it's different the next time.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes,
got it.
sir.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's,
Everybody else in the room knew that? I didn't know it.
well, you'd like to think it's simpler than it is. And there are some folks who will stack these on top and, just one after another, which is great, but you have to make a minimum investment and it has to be a separate investment and you have to increase your employment again. And so we encourage folks to combine your investments because getting 10% employment each time is tougher and tougher.
Thanks, Paul.
Councilor Osowski.
Mr. Wick, I appreciate you coming and presenting with us tonight and looking at the extension of the enterprise zone. In the resolution, I noticed that it indicates that Control Solution is required to pay employees wages and benefits at the average annual covered payroll. Could you explain why it's a requirement rather than a practice or something that the business does to meet those for their employees on their own?
I think that's.
Or am I
It's in the,
misreading it?
it's in the resolution because it's in the statute.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I move we approve resolution number 22-07.
Hearing a motion by Councilor McHugh to approve resolution number 22-07. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Council President Greisen. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next item. Follow up on ARPA funds and Habitat for Humanity, Mr. Isaac Butman.
It is actually, Mr. Horn.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. When we last met, I believe the council wanted us to look into other various municipalities and city councils and whatnot that had made decisions to grant ARPA funds to local Habitat for Humanity. And Jennifer from Habitat has looked into some of those and some certain of the minutes, like from Lake Oswego and some agreements with Forest Grove and all. And I think she has submitted those as exhibits.
Those documents are in the packets. Just
Okay,
Okay.
okay. I don't know if you want to start out.
Also in the packet is a graph of our income limits that I didn't include last time. I know Counselor Miller may have been interested in deliberations. I did have a difficult time finding the deliberations. I don't know if you're looking for a discussion, qualified census tracts. As I explained at the last time we met, this doesn't seem to have come up as an issue with other municipalities. What I've included here is actually, most of the information is on two projects. One is for Lake Oswego, and the other one is for Forest Grove. The last page is just a list of other cities and counties that have given money for Habitat for Humanity projects.
And one, if we look at number 6 in the packet, it was the American Rescue Plan funding agreement between the City of Forest Grove and West Tuality Habitat for Humanity. If you look at the opening verbiage there, this agreement is made and entered into by and between the City of Forest Grove and West Tuality Habitat for Humanity.
48.
Everybody have that in front of them?
Yeah.
Okay. And funding is being awarded under the ARPA category, quote, to address negative impacts caused by the health emergency, end quote. The purpose of this grant award is to provide funding to assist the grantee to make critical home repairs and other home repairs for low-income, elderly, disabled, and veteran families in Forest Grove that have been affected by COVID. And obviously, I mean, I think that kind of dovetails into the present request before the council, because obviously it's for development for low-income families in the Scapus area. And also, if we look at some of the language from the minutes of out of Lake Oswego, that's attachment 4.
Just 43 and 44.
And then at the bottom, page 10 of 13, said that the ad hoc committee appointed by the council had met twice and determined 4 primary priorities. These are the bullet points they have listed there. Determine the grant eligibility requirements, which meant considering the structure, outreach, and application so that tourism and hospitality nonprofits and those who help all residents receive funding regardless of their grant management capacity. And the third bullet point, consideration would be given to nonprofit outreach to those in Lake Oswego that were well known, but also doing outreach to others that could use additional funding. So as Jennifer said, in looking through these materials, I really didn't see any mention of the QCTs, the qualified census tracts, which has come up in some of our meetings. And again, I think that's an example why in the final rule, the QCTs were not meant to be the be-all and end-all criteria for determining eligibility. It said it was a factor you could look at, but there are other factors you can look at in determining need in a community. And again, from the materials provided, even though we don't have a lot of minutes from some of these decisions that were made, I think just from what we're seeing here, it's consistent with requests being made for the council today.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor?
I would lean to our legal counsel to say, with this information provided, does it change any of your interpretation that was shared with council in the past?
No, and I picked up the phone to call David Powell, who I believed was Lake Oswego city attorney, and I learned that he retired. He retired last year. Unfortunately, this doesn't come up that infrequently that I go through various statutes and Oregon administrative rules and federal guidance and pull out criteria and present them to you as a council so you can weigh legal risk. And then when I look at other jurisdictions, their record is completely devoid of any findings that would explain why they're eligible. So why did Lake Oswego think they were eligible? I looked to see if Lake Oswego had a qualified census tract, thinking that they probably might not, and they do not have a qualified census tract. They didn't make any findings to explain why the area that was getting the grant dollars was substantially similar to a qualified census tract. And it doesn't seem to be, I found the same minutes that Habitat for Humanity found, which didn't illustrate that it was considered. So I can't explain why other lawyers do what they do. I can only speak for myself.
Thank you, Peter.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor.
you had mentioned at the last meeting, in terms of what you're asking, like a nominal amount, that there was some leeway with that. Originally, you had asked for quite a substantial amount, and then in a following meeting, you had said, but this would really kind of get us through. Can you remind us of those numbers?
The original ask was for $282,000, and that would cover the off-site improvements. It doesn't cover things like the SDCs or the building permits or anything. That wasn't in the 282,000. The last time at the last meeting, I said $100,000, I think would show a substantial investment by the community, and I could use that to write other grants and fill in gap.
Thank you.
Counselor McKeel.
Well, I'd just like to comment that one of the main things that we are concerned about as a council is affordable low-income housing. It comes up over and over again. And it's really a hard thing to accommodate. And if there's one entity or organization in this community that actually does provide affordable housing to people who need it, it's Habitat for Humanity. And so whatever risk we might be taking, I feel is probably minimal. I know Peter is an outstanding attorney, and I appreciate the input, but he's putting it on us, you know, if we are willing to take what I would consider pretty minimal risk to do some sort of, we don't know how much, we haven't, that's a whole nother matter. But as far as providing some support for Habitat for Humanity, I think we should make every effort we can to do that, because affordable low-income housing is a big deal. Even some of the places that we build, you're gonna have investors buying them, and they'll rent them out to people. And you know, maybe it's low income, maybe it's not. I don't know. You know, it's really hard to truly serve the people that you serve, and you do it. So I think we should do what we can to support you.
Thank you. Counselor Santiago.
Thank you. Again, I'm kind of late in the conversation, but
Can you speak higher or turn the volume up?
yes, hi. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Again, I'm sorry, I'm kind of late in the conversation. But just to clarify some of the, it's a lot of the information is like Lake Oswego. Is this the Habitat for Humanity? Is it a chapter that obviously I'm guessing that covers our area, and the funding will also be for our community? Yes, right? That's
Yes.
one of my questions. Okay. And I'm not sure who was speaking, but said the $100,000 would show investment, but is there a outline on how they define that and what that you would be used, or we're not asking, we're just kind of be donating it to the as a donation?
During one of the previous couple of meetings, they did have outlined budgets for the request. So $100,000 would not meet that full request, but it would get them along the way to write more grants based on what was said tonight. So my understanding.
Is
If
that
it
part
was-
of a matching? Use it as a match?
No, it'd just be more of a donation.
Okay.
And
thanks.
they've got a very specific property that they purchased from a community action team that they were wanting to develop into housing. I believe 10 units.
Okay. Thank you.
And just for clarification, Counselor Santiago, I'm going to address the director of Habitat for Humanity. The difference between this property compared to others is you're having to do a lot more work to the land in order to prep it. You're bringing utilities in and doing other things that maybe aren't within your normal scope of work. Can you?
That's correct. Normally what we've been doing is we purchase infill lots, And so we don't have to do half-street improvements. We don't have to replace water lines. So that was what the budget was.
Thank you.
Can I ask where that property is?
It's between Myrtle and Maple, between Third and Fourth.
Oak.
Oh,
Thank you.
sorry.
And Myrtle.
I was giving you extra land. I'm not sure those homeowners would like it, but I know it's on Myrtle because I see it every morning.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Counselor,
So what would be next steps on this to decide the actual amount, or if we first want to do it and then decide the actual amount that we're willing to give, or?
That's a different committee, isn't it?
no, that would be us.
Just not on this particular agenda item.
Yeah, not, I think in a future agenda item that we've got this update information. I think councils could request staff bring back options at the next meeting, I believe.
Well, shouldn't we include the budget committee in this? We've done that with other ARPA funds.
We could. Oh, I mean, they were at the very beginning. Then we elevated to
We just
council.
dumped them?
No, this went into a council meeting out of the work sessions. But we could bring them back.
You're just not here.
Anytime we've had these items, even on a regular agenda, we still make sure that they're aware if they want to join us, and they haven't, but we are making sure that they're still staying up to date on that when this is being discussed.
So explain, is this the committee?
You've got the
Us-
power, Pete.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
us plus the budget committee, are we ever going to meet again on the ARPA funds?
So yes,
Okay.
and like I said,
That's when we should talk about it.
well, like I said, they've been notified of all these meetings.
Yeah.
You all are part of the budget committee. It's you and a number of citizens. So they've been notified. They have been at the work sessions. Ultimately, it is council's call, but they have been providing input, and they will continue to be notified when these items come up so they can attend if they're available.
I think what Pete would like is to have,
That doesn't make sense.
I think what Pete's asking for is another session where we have the budget committee and us hash out the things like this.
They're not here, we'd be just overriding them. They would have an opportunity, but I think that this is an important decision, and I would see that this group here would give the okay that we might move forward with some funding for Habitat, but the exact amount should come from that extended group, because that's why we put them together.
Councilor Lasowski.
Counselor, just to confirm, there will be no decision made at this particular juncture tonight in regards to the dollars being released. Is my understanding, it was just an information gathering and an opportunity for Habitat to report back their findings, which they've done a great job in providing what we had asked of them. And so as we, as a group, move forward with ARPA distribution, we would take this into consideration based on their request and review. And I think that, I think on city managers' plan of having a work session and or just bringing the ARPA request to council is yet to be determined, be my understanding. Is that correct?
Right. So this wasn't on the agenda specifically for any kind of, final decision. I think, as you stated, we wanted to make sure they got the follow-up information. And that this could be brought back at a later time. I know that at one point we had had several work sessions where we talked about all of the requests. I know that those are a bit overwhelming and we could never, usually get through every single one. So we have been kind of breaking them off in pieces so that you all can deep dive into one specific request and, get more information and make decisions. So yes, I mean, we'd certainly bring this back at a later time. And, again, make sure that all the budget committee members are invited and know that, this is up for discussion.
So I think what we probably should just do is another short work session with the budget committee on this. I think that's what Pete's asking for.
Well, yeah, I can't imagine we wouldn't move forward without doing that. That's what we set them up for. And we haven't we got to like the first 3 or 4 items on the agenda. And the reason we have Habitat here today is because we wanted to kind of work that out. So we didn't take all of the meeting time on that one issue. And because that's what took the majority of the time. And so I'm feeling, I don't know what kind of, I would guess if we can't vote on something, maybe we can have some sort of consensus that we feel that ARPA funds can be used to support Habitat for Humanity. And I mean, that would, I don't see, there's something wrong with doing some sort of consensus or poll or, because really that committee needs to know, are we supporting them or not? By them, I mean Habitat.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Miller.
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. So, Councilor McHugh, you're looking for just a consensus right now of what council's thinking, and then secondary would be reviewing the ARPA fund distribution with the budget committee.
Exactly.
Okay.
You did that very concise. Thank you.
So there's two ways we can do it. I guess we can make a motion saying that we believe that ARPA funds can be used for Habitat for Humanity based on the information we were provided. Or we can,
Ask if anybody's opposed to it.
or yeah, or ask if anyone's opposed to it. Is anyone opposed to it? Councilor Osowski.
I am neither in approval or opposing it. I still need more time to review the information before I can make a decision.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Pauling.
I actually am right there with Brandon as well, Councilor Lazowski as well. I am not sure yet where I fall. I kind of fall on the fence. I think these are great use. This would be a great use for ARPA funds. But I still have to take in consideration, obviously, legal risk. And so I am still on the fence.
Thank you. Councilor Miller.
The only thing that's a little concerning to me is we don't really have a deadline yet for when we are going to decide, how the ARPA funds are going to be used. So until we have a list or decide on the various things that qualify or that we actually want to move to like maybe a next round or something, it's kind of hard to say. And also the amounts that each, call it an applicant, wants to receive also. It seems like it'd make a lot more sense if we had a deadline on this and we decide, the different qualifying distributions that could occur. And then we sit down with the budget committee, like I think Councilor McHugh is getting at, and we decide.
Mr. President.
What I'm hearing from City Manager Rains is that the Budget Committee has been invited and they're not attending. Is that correct? Okay, so we can ask again. That's a more, we can ask again. And if they come, they come. And if they don't, then either way, the decision's up to us. But I do agree with Councilor Miller that it's very difficult to say, put this money here, or this amount here, or that amount here, when we don't have a big picture of all the projects that we're looking at. So I am fine that not all of the money is, that some money is continued to be held onto up until, I don't think that just because someone hasn't come forward yet doesn't mean that they shouldn't be, or that we don't find a need or something that, so.
I think what we found was that when we were talking about every single request all at once, every single time we spoke about this, that it seemed like there wasn't a lot of progress being made because we had so many different items to cover.
Sure.
I know that there had been a request to pull some of these items out and talk about them separately. So that's why we're doing this and why we're, taking the time to talk about this one in particular. And so there were a couple like that we've had. But the idea after this, if I'm wrong, but we had actually planned on having soon another work session, essentially, again, with the budget committee being invited, where we'd again sort of revisit the remaining amount of money and the remaining requests and what you all thought about what you'd heard about those requests. So, so these were simply, per your request, sort of deep dives into a couple of them so you could better understand what it was. And then we would go back to that, larger discussion with that bigger list, but you'd have more information, understanding of what those requests really were, so you could make an informed decision.
I'm in favor of keeping this one on the list, if that's the question. Thank you.
guess the question I would have, what additional information does the council need to make a decision on whether we support Habitat for Humanity with ARPA funds or not? So what additional, Josh and Brandon, what more information do you guys need, or how are you going to gather up that information?
I'd like to review the documents that were provided in a little bit more depth. I can also reach out to legal counsel for additional information. I'd also like to speak to members of the community to ensure that that's something that they're interested in. Those are going to be my first 3 steps. Thank you.
And maybe a question that hasn't been asked yet, Peter, what bottom line is, what's our liability here? What could happen to us in the worst case scenario? What could happen to us?
We would have to return the funds. So that's, that's something that, I'm not gonna like play audit roulette because I'm not allowed to consider that in our analysis. I mean, what we have, we know what's safe, we know what's more risky. This is, of the projects I've reviewed, the one that I believe has the greatest legal risk, because the testimony that we have had is that we have the 3rd highest household income in the state of Oregon. And so they reference QCTs, they reference tribal lands, they reference in the final rules things that are substantially similar. I don't see how we can credibly claim that we're substantially similar to a QCT, knowing that in a QCT, a family of 3 makes $21,000 in their household income. So what I would say is, I think as an intellectual exercise, it would be difficult to get there. Habitat for Humanity is a beloved organization by a lot of people. And, how hard would we be pressed if it came up? I can't speak to that. I just kind of have to take the Treasury guidance as it is and then inform you guys. So, of all the projects we've looked at, given the household income here, given the fact that Scapus wasn't hit hard by COVID, as compared to counties to the east of us and counties in Southern Oregon, given our relatively high household income, 3rd highest in the state reportedly, actually higher than the city of Lake Oswego's.
No, it's not.
Yeah, the thing that he brought in, I think, it was Happy Valley was first. Or I think Sherwood, Happy Valley, us.
That wasn't just income.
Well, it was household income. It was
Our income was 80, there's 110.
of total income.
Yeah.
Of like including investment income. I saw the list I saw and we were 3rd on it. I can't speak to the accuracy of that. I'm not familiar with the organization. But there's a long way between that and a QCT of space there. So that's, and again, I feel like sometimes I'm the only lawyer that gives people the bad news. And I hate doing it, right? I really wish I could say this program's wide open and you can spend it however you want. Huel and I have had this conversation. We've all had this conversation together. And, it's very important in my opinion, particularly during times when there's not a lot of trust in government, that governments go through this sort of thoughtful exercise. So I'm glad that you're doing that and that you're giving Habitat the opportunity to make their case and that you guys will make the best decision you can based on all the facts in front of you. I'm sure of that.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yes, Counselor
Uh,
Pauling.
just my response to Councilor McHugh's question, just to follow up as well. I think that for me, really again, I think it comes down to this would be great use of funds. But my concern falls also what Pete said, what Peter said, and really comes down to, if worst case scenario, if they came back and said, those funds are not for that use, and we've already spent that money in just the mathematics side of it. We've already spent it. We're out that 250,000 or 100,000 or however much we give them. Plus, we're also out the amount of money that we would have gotten from ARPA funds. So really, that number doubles. And not saying that that will happen, but that's really just the math inside my head saying that's the risk that we're putting out there. Whether that's a 1% risk, a 10% risk, whatever it is, that's my concern.
Thank you, Josh. So I'm going to assume that we're going to bring this back with, maybe we can do a half work session and invite the budget committee just on this issue so that we can get that input from,
Just this one specifically.
yeah, just, well, yeah, why don't we get this one out of the way first before we start going back to others?
Would you want it in a work session with an agenda, a regular agenda item to follow, so then you could make a decision?
Yes.
Mayor,
Counselor Santiago?
before you guys kind of make a decision on bringing in the budget committee, and this is just my personal thoughts. I don't know if this has happened, but would it be a good idea for the council, for us as council, to kind of brainstorm with and having the attorney there, city attorney there, if possible, to kind of, I would like to see for myself visually, like the verbiage more clearly, and sitting down and maybe brainstorming and possibly look at, from what I understand, Alex City Planners does have a kind of a list. I know there's maybe a long list, but maybe putting a few items into the pipeline, not all. And just having that initial small list and really looking into the regulation and really dissecting, because I do this on a daily basis and make sure that follow the regulations from the government, and see if there's any way how we can either document or brainstorm or be creative on how we document and use the funds in order for us to be covered. And that's why I said to have the attorney there. That's my idea and my thought. I don't know if you guys are up to that.
So that would be something that would be done in a work session. So yeah,
Before
I mean,
bringing
that's,
in this, before bringing in the budget committee.
so council would have to meet in this type of discussion in a work session. We couldn't do it anywhere else other than inside of a public meeting.
She's saying
Right.
do that before we meet with the budget committee.
Okay, yeah, we can do it that
Correct.
way.
So have a 30-minute work session on this, just council, and then another one with the budget committee?
I have a comment, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
go ahead.
I do not agree that we only look at this issue on its own. I'd like to bring all of the all of the applications in front of us. So we have this one. What are the others that are still on the table? Is this the only one? Yeah. So we had talked how Councilor Miller had mentioned that we're looking at all of them together so that we can make a decision on how much money or where it's going or how we're looking at all of these from way up high. So I personally do not want to look at this one on its own in a work session. I would like to look at the whole group of them with the budget committee.
Yes, I agree. And create a pipeline.
Agree too.
Well, yeah, why don't we just do a full hour work session? Yeah.
I would just say an hour.
It seems to me we probably have as much information on habitat as we're going to get. No,
Yeah, we don't, I mean, they've provided us everything
think
we've asked.
it's almost to the point. It's almost like, are we going to look at the numbers and the hard line, or are we going to vote from our heart a little bit, because this is one of the best investments for low income housing that we'll ever be able to put out there. And is there a chance that it come back at us? I would say it's very, very minimal, but I do think Peter is absolutely right that there's probably a risk there of some sort. What happens if they do that? We appeal it. and there's usually some kind of negotiation, and then they'll probably slap our wrists and we'll say we'll never do it again. And, you know, so I'm just saying that there's a process involved. They don't just send you a bill. You can take care of that. So
Mr.
I
Mayor.
think we have all the information we're probably going to get at this point. You know, you don't think it's worth the risk, then you don't want to vote for it.
Counselor Miller.
I agree with Councilor McHugh that I think we have all the information that we need for Habitat for Humanity, and thank you. That is what I asked for. You guys brought it, so thank you. For me, it was very helpful. And I think this is a topic that needs to go to our work session. And I think that at our work session is the time for the council members to advocate for the things that they feel strongly about. This is, from my understanding and listening to everything, this is going to go to that work session, and we'll have a more complete conversation about it then.
All right, so that's what we'll do then. Work session on the ARPA funds, full work session. As soon as we can, or as soon as staff is ready.
Have to look at the agenda as per usual. They're pretty full, so
Okay,
we'll get it on there as soon as we can.
thank you. Thank you, Habitat for Humanity.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time and commitment.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right, next item, resolution number 22-09, a resolution authorizing the city of Scapus to enter into grant agreements with the Oregon Business Development Department for infrastructure funding. Ms. Raines.
Yes, Mayor and Council. So we have finally agreements in hand that would secure the funding, the $10 million that we were able to acquire because of Senator Johnson. And I'm going to hand this over to Huel if you have anything specific to add to that. But essentially, yeah, we're just looking for permission to sign those agreements. It would require the mayor and both myself to sign off. So.
Mayor, Council, I have nothing to add to what City Manager Raines just mentioned.
Well, I do, if that's okay.
Please.
This is a great opportunity for the city to catch up on infrastructure projects that were not even on the horizon until this funding became available to us. So this is a big blessing for birds. So.
Would also mention, Mayor, Council, that this is the largest grant amount that the city's received in one fell swoop that I think any of us know of or can recall.
That's probably true. The next one that was close was the Havlick Crossing one, and that's because we had to rebuild the track to raise the track. So, and that was like $6 or $7 million. So
Pocket change.
yeah, I wish.
Need a motion?
We're looking
Mr. Mayor.
we're looking at you because you've been here the longest.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Lasowski.
I would like to move, and I would move that council adopt resolution number 22-09, a resolution authorizing the city of Scapus to enter into grant agreements with the Oregon Business Development Department for infrastructure funding.
Hearing a motion by Councilor Lasowski, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Santiago. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Peace Candle Rehabilitation, Mr. Isaac.
Mayor and Council. So first I'd like to talk about the data really briefly before I get into it. As you can see, there's a data addendum for you. The reason for that is simply that we wanted to make sure to catch both newsletters and allow people the maximum amount of time to respond. That did net us 1,394 responses, which is 17.4% of the population, giving us a very robust sample size. So last time I was here talking to you about the Peace Candle was in February, and you asked that we reach out to the public to see what they thought about the colors. Along with that, we also reached out to the developer, the actual owner of the candle site. As a reminder, we only have an easement for maintenance of the candle. Their color priority choices are off-white, yellow, and red. In the data addendum, you'll see some tables. And I'd like to draw your attention to the first one, which is the table that shows the counts of color choice for various portions of the population. Red was the most popular at 52%. Off-white was the next at 42%, and yellow was the third choice at 6%. Respondents. So tonight, I'm hoping that you will decide on essentially the whole package, color and potentially lighting if you choose off-white, and the signage on the side of it. It seems to me that the community is liking keeping the candle the way that it was, keeping it historically accurate. And so I would propose not changing the signage too much on the candle. Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor.
I just want to say for the record that no matter what decision we make, someone's not going to be happy. But I appreciate how we, yeah, we have quite some candid comments up here about the color. But that, it is acknowledged that we did take the time to put out a survey and ask the community. And to some people, this candle means nothing. And to some people, this candle means everything. And so that we are being thoughtful and mindful of this decision and the impact that it has on our community. So I personally don't have any questions or need any more information to make my decision.
Isaac, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if the developer has considered whatever color is chosen that the apartments that are going right next to it, that it complements the candle. I don't know if that's been discussed or not.
I believe that's ultimately why they have off-white listed as their first color, is because it's fairly neutral. The paint colors with the apartments will probably change more frequently than the paint color of the candle. They haven't omitted any of the colors except for what they termed wacky colors. It would be like something like that. So they are aware. They did weigh in, but I think the paint color that's going on it is going to be the color of those.
It looked like they recently sprayed it.
Yeah, dark gray, light gray. Yeah, right.
Any other comments? Councilor Salsky.
Isaac, I noticed that preliminary results were given to us in this. Now, you had also stated that there were was this survey, did it close on May 1?
Yes.
Indeed, please go ahead.
So there were 3 different versions of the survey. We typically run these in the newsletter and on the Facebook page. We post it on the website. The third version actually was specific to Nextdoor. So we ran 3 concurrent surveys to gather data from all 3 of those sources. The vast majority came from Facebook. To be frank, about 5% was from Nextdoor and 5% were paper surveys. So very, very small percentage. Everything closed May 1st to give everybody the maximum amount of time to respond. We received about 200 responses in the last week or so. So I think it was worth it in terms of the raw data.
I'm not very social media savvy, but with Facebook and a survey, it would be very difficult unless somebody has multiple accounts to start swaying the survey results because they have that much additional time on their hands. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you're correct. So one of the things that's a common misconception about surveys is people responding multiple times to sway the data. And as you say, it is time consuming and it's hard. So even when you control for that by only allowing one response per IP address, you rarely actually net any kind of gains that are going to influence the outcome, especially when you have this high of a response rate. So when you consider things like the amount of folks who, are not of voting age, or maybe they don't have Facebook or pay attention, 17.5 is quite a large percent. It's far more than have responded to anything else.
And that can be controlled by geography of the individual to ensure that they're representative of Scapus, correct?
And I did that. Yep. I removed about 50 to 100 responses for that. So one of the questions that was required, the only question that was required was, do you live in Scapus or the Scapus area? Data has been controlled.
I appreciate your thoroughness on this. It's truly appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Counselor Miller?
So for me, I'm in line with the winning survey color, which is red. And the context for me is that, I grew up here and I love the red barn. It's fortunate that the red barn is gone. It was very iconic. And the keeping the candle red, to me, I don't know. It's just a piece of history that I think keeping it red is important.
Counselor McHugh?
The sign, we're just going to put welcome to Scapus on the sign. Is that something simple like that?
So essentially, there's two signs. There's a sign at the top that you can see really well. It's got a
Yeah.
mountain, kind of different
Right.
colors. We're proposing not to change that too much because over time, the Scapus brand will change. And
Okay.
if you say today, tool it to the colors of this current logo and our brand, in 5 years, it could change
Sure.
because it's so recognizable, because it's so generic, and it's just kind of welcomes people to the community. The idea is to keep it very similar, and that's kind of what we heard in most of the survey comments sent online was, this is an iconic piece of history. Scapus, let's keep it where it is. Let's not tear it down. That's why we're all here essentially right now, is because we wanted to keep it.
Makes sense. And the lighting package that went with red that we talked about previously, it seems like we had a consensus on that at the time.
So when we were here in February, the only decision that was made was to keep the flame assembly the same. So that came down and is being worked on currently. The lighting packages are two. So if the color of the candle is off-white, the lighting package would be color changing LEDs. So essentially at night it would be red 95% of the year. Maybe in Christmas it's red and white or something like that. The other package would just be if it was a red or a yellow candle, would be just regular old white LEDs pointed up at it to illuminate it. That has been coordinated with the developer as well. I wasn't clear because the paint color wasn't clear.
Really, it's just one option if we do red, right?
Yeah, because the red won't pick up other colors of light, it would be futile effort to try to change that color.
I like red.
Mr. Mayor?
We asked for the people's response, and the people's response was red. So I will follow within their footsteps. But I would also, just to ask for clarification, if it were off-white and we did have a lighting system, that would still be, we could choose to have it as red as part of that lighting system. So I just wanted, even though it says red, it doesn't mean that we have to paint it red. We can illuminate it to be red. I think the people are indicating a paint color here rather than a theory of how to make it.
Could it be red during the day also?
It doesn't,
Kind of.
It would be a little bit harder to see.
Yeah.
That would be more at
It would
night.
be more at night. And so during the day it would kind of blend
Say
with
the
the
candle's going to be the candle's color during the day, pretty much, I think.
Josh?
Yeah, so I agree. With the way that the surveys came back, I actually personally was leaning towards red myself. I think that historical value, the driving through Scapus as a kid, driving through Scapus, my entire life, that's the history that I get, and I would love to see it continue with red.
Jeanette?
I took the survey. I chose red, but I agree with you guys. The public or the community did choose red, and so I think we should honor that.
Okay, so we'll do it yellow. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly, yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor President.
Okay. I move that council direct staff to proceed with rehabilitation of the peace candle using the following design elements. Paint the candle red with clear or white uplighting. And to keep the basic current signage that is painted on the candle.
Hearing a motion by Council President Greisen, is there a second?
Second.
Hearing a second by Councilor Miller, is there any discussion?
Yes. Will we get to approve the final welcome to Scapus sign?
I can bring it back. Yeah,
I think that's important.
It's significantly similar.
Yeah.
It's just basically repainted.
Okay.
Is there any way,
I can just send it to you.
as we were talking about it, is there going to be anything there that kind of talks about the history of the candle?
Yeah, so at the
kiosk.
base, if you recall, there's a light blue sign that talks about the history. We want to move that onto a plaque at the candle to kind of incentivize people to come up and interact, to kind of pull it down and clarify the candle as a candle and less of something for signage. So right now, we're planning on some kind of a plaque that says, you know, established, built in this time. Thank you to the sponsors or people who have donated to the rehabilitation. Talk a little bit about the history, but make it more like a landmark you might actually visit than a beacon of signage.
Beacon that you're home, for those that grew up here. All right, any other discussion?
I actually have a question for you, Mayor. Just as we pick red, that leads to a whole nother selection of things for paint. Now that we got to start to pick that. Want to have bright red? Do we want to tone it down? Do we want to gloss it? I mean, is there any vision that you all would have what that red might look like, just to help us working with the paint contractor?
I would try to make it as close to what it was. I mean, obviously it's going to be brighter because it's new paint, but as close to that color profile as possible. That would be my thought.
I prefer the matte, not a shine.
See, this is why there's some sense, just because there are so many variations.
I don't want you to paint any of the cars in the Fred Meyer parking lot when you paint it either. By, you know.
We look at that before this actually start, approve the final approval.
We'd be getting into a time crunch. Paint's gonna need to be ordered now to meet
Essentially.
that deadline. So that's why I'm asking this in this setting, if there's a common vision of what that paint's be.
I agree with a matte, but it's close to
The
the
current.
history red that it
Yeah,
has had.
okay, I'll go with that.
Yeah, Matt, with as close to that red.
Just, Matt, I'll talk to the painter, is hard to wash or do anything, but it may also hide dirt and wear, so.
Do what you
that just
gotta
helps Give
do.
us some guidance to what to work with, so thank you.
I think the common theme is that we just want as close to represent history as possible, the history of the candle as possible.
Would satin change that?
Some glitter on it.
I think that like more of a satin or a matte, anything is just off the shiny. The big question is, do you want the shiny like it kind of currently is, just aged, or want it to?
I didn't realize that it was
I
shiny.
didn't either. I think it seems like,
It's aged. Actually, the yellow that's under it from the previous paint is starting to bleed through. So
really,
it's very misleading as to what the color.
I guess do what's gonna last.
but satin isn't real obviously,
Yeah.
it's makes it easier to clean and, but
And well, satin leads towards the matte. You get
Yeah.
that kind of.
yeah.
I just don't want it that when sun's setting over on the west,
Oh,
it's off of there and it becomes an eyesore or
drive like a hazard.
yeah, it's a hazard for anyone driving on that highway. I don't think we're.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Announcements. The next city council meeting will be May 16th. Work session at 6 o'clock, city council meeting at 7 PM. Planning commission is May 12th at 7 o'clock. The next 50-year stakeholder advisory committee meeting at 6 o'clock. Economic Development Committee is on the 19th at noon. Parks and Rec that same day at 6 PM. Our first budget committee meeting is May 23rd at 5:30 PM here in council chambers, followed by, if needed, budget committee meeting 5:30 PM on the 24th. The 26th is another planning commission meeting at 7 PM. City offices are closed on the 30th for Memorial Day, and the 50-year stakeholder advisory committee meeting again is on the 31st of May at 6 o'clock. Alex, you have anything?
I just wanted to thank all the members of staff that helped set up the annual town meeting. They put a lot of work into that, and I think it turned out really well. And just thank all the members of council for attending as well. But
Mr. Jensen, you have anything?
Sir.
Mr. Sukow?
Yeah, as most of you know, we just came off of what I believe is the highest record rainfall in the month of April. We're doing our best to keep up with the parks, but right now mowing is virtually impossible. Sure, this is all going to break soon and then take off. Just we're doing our best out there.
Counselor Polling, you have anything?
Yes, so I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that went to the annual town hall meeting, all the citizens that were involved. I thought it went very well. I was very excited about it, except for the mayor's Scapus joke. Should have been St. Helens, but you know. Other than that, no, I was really excited. I want to thank staff, especially because you guys did all the hard work. We were just there to be the faces, so thank you.
Counselor Santiago.
I am so sorry I missed it. I wanted to be there so bad, but I'm sure you guys didn't want me to be there for the town meeting. Are we going to have a question on the meeting of the work session on the 16th? Are we going to discuss the ARPA, or the funds, how we're going to use it? Or is this another one?
It'll be a separate future meeting. I think that one's already planned for another item.
Okay, great. Well, I'm just letting you know, I'll be out of town. That's actually my birthday. And so I'll be out of town that week. I am so sorry.
No, celebrate your birthday.
And I would be, whoever wants to call me, you guys I would like to discuss your perception on the meeting and the work session. So.
Thank you. Are you finished, Jeanette?
Yes, I'm sorry, I had a cough.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It just went silent, so, okay, thank you. Counselor Miller.
Just a big thank you to staff and all city council for attending the annual town meeting. I thought it was excellent. It's the first one that I've been to. Last year's, of course, it was all virtual, right? Yeah, so I missed the in-person part of it. But yeah, no, I thought it was great. It turned out really well. It was really awesome to see all the participation too, especially everybody gathered around the maps with their different ideas, and just seeing the common recurring themes too was really insightful. As well. And I look forward to next year's. Thank you.
Council President Grayson.
I just wanted to say there were several proclamations this evening, but I also wanted to say that this week is recognized as Teacher Appreciation Week. And yesterday, the first was actually Principal's Day. So I just want to thank everyone who engages with our youth. And with that, in regards to each of those proclamations, I just want to thank the local small businesses. I thought it was very, telling tonight that we had a local business owner that we've just opened up and started the Columbia County Small Business Center with a brand new director. I'm really grateful for our Public Works Department. I mean, literally, you keep our city functioning. So thank you. Local Law Enforcement Week, and then the VFW was here tonight, and these are literally citizens that put their life on the line for us, and I appreciate it. Thank you. The annual town meeting is always such a pleasure to engage with the citizens, and I thought, as Councilor Miller had said, just their engaging conversations about what they want Scapus to be and what it's like was very humbling and exciting. This weekend, I was able to attend the high school play of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. We took our kids and they loved it. And it's just so amazing that, high schoolers can do such great, amazing things, and that we're raising and fostering that in our community. And then the Grant Watts Parent Organization auction closed this week, and just wanted to thank the community. We raised over $20,000 for our school, which was great. And then my last comment has to do with our Parks Master Plan. I would say personally, and I don't know if I'm sharing this with others up here, but I think the idea of, we will never or not address any sort of improvements in a park until that master plan is revamped is, just in my opinion, not the reality. We've never made an executive decision up here to do that. Obviously we won't be making huge investments in something that we're not sure about if we don't have a plan. And as we've mentioned, that plan was created by an intern at the time who was very part-time and didn't have a lot of background knowledge of creating a plan like that. And it's a great starting point. But things evolve and change, and we're at that point where we need some more hard, concrete numbers that are a little more realistic in order to apply for grants and make strategic decisions on and budget for parks. So I just wanted to clarify that I personally am a supporter of parks and the improvements in them, and I think that people up here feel the same way.
Slosowski.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity on Earth Day to go down to Chapman Landing and volunteer some time and doing a beautification of the space down there. One of the things that I most enjoyed about that time is just having the opportunity to have a vision of what that asset will provide to our community as an anchor, as a connecting spot for individuals to come and connect with nature and with each other. I'm really excited on our master plan as we move forward to ensure that we create a space that is accessible, safe, and utilized for all ages of our community member. I wanted to thank both the Scapus Bay Watershed and our Parks and Rec Committee for organizing not only the litter cleanup or the beautification of that space, but also other events within the community, a scavenger hunt for families and or individuals to go and see our current parks and engage with them. I also want to echo everyone's response into this weekend's annual town hall. It's always a great function, and it's always great to see new faces, but also other reoccurring faces that continue to be engaged within our community. It shows that people are extremely passionate about where we are heading. And as elected officials that sit here, I think it's such an important thing that we represent the voice of the folks that we that elected us and put us into these positions. So it was a great turnout, great way to host. So thank you to city staff and for all their participation and setting up and being able to launch this in-person event once again for us. Thank you.
I like to second everything Brandon said about Earth Day. I wasn't participating. I wasn't feeling well that day, but I heard good reports, so I was very pleased. I really like the emphasis in our newsletter that we're getting on new businesses. I think that's really neat. As often as we can do that, I think it really pays off, and give a little shout out to some of the new businesses in the area. And probably doesn't even have to be new businesses. It just could be small businesses in our community that we want to highlight for some reason. So I thought this last newsletter was really well done. Town hall meeting, nice job, everybody. Appreciate everybody's work. I think it went very well. And going to Paul Fidrick's comments at the beginning of the meeting, I think there's a piece of information missing there because or a misunderstanding. We've talked about Parks and Rec over and over again. We've talked about right in this meeting here or some of our meetings having maybe doing the pickleball courts out of instead of using ARPA funds, we'll use funds from the operating budget. So I think there's a piece of information that was missing there that Paul was saying that there's no funds at all to be used. Because I think that we have talked about using funds and we've had a general consensus on doing that. So, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that he maybe misunderstood what was being said, or maybe he was looking at just a small portion of the expenditures for Park and Rec, but we can't put things on hold indefinitely. And the master plan, I was a part of that, and so was Mike Sykes and Joel and a lot of other people. It was more than just Huel. Huel did a great job with it, but it was a really team effort, and we worked hard on that. And so I think I think what's there is only 5 years old, so it has some value. I mean, things have changed certainly since then, but it's not like it's totally obsolete.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say that, you go forward with the plan you have, not the plan you want or are working on, because that plan's currently in place. So I think there's just a miscommunication there. I think the desire from the council is that we move forward on updating the master plan. And I think it was Ben that actually was the intern that did it.
Ben?
For Heal, yeah,
Yeah, I worked on it.
yeah.
It was actually.
Oh, it was Ben.
It was
Yeah,
Nick's
you're right,
son.
Ben. He was here. That's right. It was.
Yeah,
Ben.
it was
Okay,
actually
yeah.
Nick that started
I
it,
remember
and then Ben did the
Okay,
capital
sorry.
improvement plan, right?
I forgot all about Ben.
Yeah.
It was Ben. You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
You did a good job, though.
But yeah, I think the council's desire is to see that updated. Not that it means that, I think the biggest problem is that if it's not in the master plan, it makes it more difficult to get a grant.
Yes, so I think adding things to the master plan for that reason helps a lot. Having updated numbers when you're going for those, grants is helpful. I think there's a lot of really good background information in the plan that we can certainly use and, push into the new plan. As kind of use as a starting off point, but we've acquired new properties since then. We did a separate little master plan on the Vista property. We could talk about maybe incorporating some of that even into this plan. There's just been things that have happened since then that could be updated.
And the annual town hall meeting kind of reminded me of, interestingly enough, the same joy as it's going to go to the Uber Lyft driving, and we were able to take off our masks. People, it's amazing that mask stopped communication in the car. So people went and talked because it muffled conversations. And once people were able to take those masks off, conversations in the car started back like it was previous to the pandemic. And being at the annual town hall meeting is the same thing. You have people that come up to you and want to talk about a subject that you weren't even thinking about. All of a sudden, you're having this conversation about whether it's policing or parks or any other item that of concern to the city. It's just a wonderful opportunity to meet people in the community and listen to their ideas. And that's, I think, the besides all the technical stuff that we got done and the community coming together to plan the future, which is fantastic, those individual conversations, I think, were equally as fantastic about the meeting. So it was great. I think that it was dead on what we needed to do on finding the future for Scapus, and it was great. So thank you, everyone. I have nothing else. Anyone else have anything? All right, not even 9 o'clock. No motion to extend needed. Meeting adjourned.